Hey everyone, I'm Serena Roberts and thanks for watching this how-to. Today I'm going to show you guys a practical use case for the new rows function inside Tableau Prep. So what you're seeing here is fake data, but it might look like a spreadsheet that you would see from finance. It's highly formatted. We've got revenue plan by channel, so this is a fictitious retail store. They have different channels that they sell across, and they have revenue targets by month for each of those channels. This spreadsheet includes quarterly totals, monthly totals, total totals, and while this may be great for finance's use, if you work with data or are in reporting or analytics, we know that this setup is less than ideal when we need to blend this with other data or use it to create data visualizations inside tools like Tableau. So let's jump over to Tableau Prep. And what I've done is I've created a very simple workflow that takes this highly formatted spreadsheet and distills it down to the very basics of what we need from a reporting sense. And what that looks like is essentially these three fields. We have date, we have channel, and we have our monthly plan. Now in this video, I'm not going to go into great detail about what exactly I'm doing in each of these cleanup steps here to get to this point. But at a high level, I'm removing some unnecessary columns and rows. I'm creating some calculated fields for year and channel, doing some renaming. Obviously, there's a pivot involved, and then some final cleanup to get us to our end product here. But you could stop here if your use case only called for revenue plan by channel at the month level. But a lot of times we want to see that data more granularly at a daily level. And you could simply bring this in and, multiply, add some, total up the monthly plan to get an annual total and then divide that by 365 and so on. You could do it that way. But if you want to be a little bit more sophisticated and account for the nuances in the number of days per month, and still keep those monthly targets on track, then that is where this new feature called New Rows can come in really handy inside Tableau Prep. So for the sake of this tutorial, we will pretend that we need our plan numbers at the day level, not the monthly level, and dividing it by 365 for the total plan just isn't going to do. It's not going to do. Our stakeholders want more than that. So let's create a new branch. We're going to do that by clicking on this little plus and adding a clean step. This gives me another branch. So it's sort of another direction. If outputting this workflow isn't going to work for us, then we're going to just branch off and we're going to do some more stuff until we get what we need. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually rename this date field to be the start of the month. And I can see here that it's the start of the month. Each of these dates is just the start of the month. So it's a little bit more appropriate, and it'll make more sense once we create this first calculated field. This first calculated field is actually going to be the end of the month. And we're essentially going to do this using two nested date add features or functions. So essentially this is, we'll use February 1st as an example here. So February 1st. So this function is based off of the start of the month field. So February 1st. If we look at this first date add function, we're adding 1 month. So here, if we add 1 month to February 1st, we get March 1st. The second component of this date add function is subtracting 1 second. So if I subtract 1 second from March 1st at 11:59 p.m., that's going to back me up into, you guessed it, February 28th, which is the end of the month for the month of February. So let's save that, and we'll just make sure. So we have our start of the month is February 1st, and our end of the month is February 29th. We do want to change the data type from a date time field to just a date field, and we can do that by coming up to this little icon at the top of our end of the month column, and right now we have date time checked. Simply gonna just change it to be a date. So now those the start of the month and the end of the month fields are the same data type, and that will be important when we get to the new rows function. Okay, so we have 2 more calculated fields to create, but they're pretty simple, and we could actually do this in one calculated field, but I think it's nice to just break these steps out individually so you can make sure that the math is correct and doing what you want to do at each step. So this next field is essentially the days per month. We just want to understand how many days are in each month, and we can do that pretty easily using the date diff function, because we have our start date and our end date. So the first thing we need to do is just tell it what interval we want to count at. So we want to count at the day level. So tell me the number of days between the start of the month and the end of the month. And then one little caveat, we're going to add a +1 to make sure that we're counting that start of the month day as well. Otherwise, we'll be 1 day short per month. Okay, so that gives us our days per month. We can come down and see those results that, yep, we have 28 days in February, 31 in March, 30 in April. That looks good. Now that we have our days per month calculation, we can create our third and final calculated field. And that is, what is our daily plan? We have plan at the month level right now, but we are after the daily plan. So let's create a calculated field, and this is very, very simple. We are simply going to take the monthly plan and we're going to divide it by the number of days in the month using the calculated field that we just created. Let's save, and that will give us our daily plan values, which is what we're after ultimately. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of some of the fields that we no longer need. So we really only needed the days per month to calculate our daily plan, so let's remove that. And now that we have our daily plan values, we don't need monthly plan either, because we can always aggregate our daily plan up to the month level once we get into our reporting tool. So we're going to remove monthly plan as well. So what we're left with now is daily plan, our start of the month and our end of the month, and our channel fields. And I like to just kind of keep these in order. I always like to have my metrics all the way to the right and then my other dimensions on the left-hand side. So these are the 4 fields that we need to use our new rows feature properly. There is one final thing that we need to do here, and that is to filter this particular node down to a single channel, and then we will create 2 more copies of that node and filter it to the other 2 remaining channels. So at the end of the day, what we have are 3 separate nodes, one representing call center, one representing online retail, and one representing retail, but they'll all essentially be the same otherwise. So let's keep only. We're going to right click call center and say keep only, and that's going to filter this node down to just call center. Okay, so now we can copy this node. So I'm going to right click and copy, and then I'm going to find a blank space here. Oh, let's try that one more time. Copy and then paste. And we're actually going to do that one more time. Copy and paste. And then just like we created a new branch to start doing this work, we're going to create 2 more branches that we can connect these sort of floating nodes to. So we're going to come down to this monthly plan by channel node, and we're going to hit the plus sign, and we're going to add one more clean step, and then another clean step. You don't want to, as you're hovering over this, you might see this option to create something, to add something inside this this connector, and what that just adds another clean step there. That's not what we want. You actually want 3 separate branches from this one single node. So now that we have those 2 other branches, we can then bring these floating nodes over here and then add. You don't want a union, you don't want to join, you want to make sure that you're adding. Okay? Do that same thing with this one. Add it. Okay, and now we're actually going to just get rid of these empty clean steps. We don't need them. They're not serving a purpose. And any opportunity that you have to keep your workflows clean and pristine, you should take. All right, one more sort of housekeeping cleanup thing we're going to do is we're going to rename these nodes to represent the channels that they are filtered to. So this one is call center. This one is also call center, but we're going to change that. So if you've never used Tableau Prep before, what you'll see is that every single change that I've made, everything I've done in here is being tracked on this left-hand side. And the last thing that we did was filter it to call center. I can simply hit the little X to remove that. And then I have all 3 of my options back. And this time I can select online retail, right click, and say keep only. And now this one is filtered to online retail. And then we'll come up to our 3rd and final node, remove that last filter step, and then say we're going to keep retail. And we'll rename this retail. So now I can clearly see that we have 3 nodes that represent each of the 3 channels, and they are all set up and ready for us to use the new rows feature. So let's do that. We'll come to this plus sign and say new rows. Now it's going to give us an error right away, don't worry. We just need to enter in some information and that will go away. So we go in, dig into the new rows node, and under the settings tab, we want to add new rows using ranges between 2 fields. And this is where those start of the month and end of the month fields really come in handy. So this is essentially telling this when to start over, right? So so each new month, it's going to start over copying rows. So we'll do start of the month and end of the month. And the field name, the new field name is going to be date. And then the last thing we want to do is copy from the previous row. So we can kind of get a preview of the results down here where all the rows are the same. End of the month, that's all 228. Daily plan, it's all 16,412. Start of the month is all February 1st. Channel is all retail. However, our new field, the field that it is creating, is the date field. And now we have a day, a single row for each day of each month for the retail channel. And it is starting over each month because we told it to use the start of the month and the end of the month. That's essentially it. That's as easy as it is to use the new rows feature. However, we need to repeat those steps for these other two channels. So let's do that. And you guys will be super good at this by the time we're done. So value ranges from two fields, start of the month to the end of the month. Our new field name is date, and we want to copy from the previous row. And this is default set to increments. You can change it, but it is defaulting to increment by 1 day. That's what we want. If that's not what you want, then you can adjust these settings. Okay, so that is the online retail new rows node. Our last one is call center. All right, value ranges from two fields, start to the end of the month. Our new field name is date, and we are copying from the previous row. Okay, so we're done with that. And just really quick, if you haven't realized that, the whole reason why we needed to create separate nodes for the separate channels is that if we hadn't done that, there would be no differentiation between the different channels in the final output, because it would just continue to copy the channel from the previous row. We can only tell it to differentiate between the one dimension, and we needed to do that using the month. If we set that to differentiate between the channel, then we would have no differentiation between the month. So maybe we'll build this feature out in the future, but as it stands right now, you do need to create separate nodes for each of those individual dimension values per channel. Okay, we are super close to being done. The final step is to union these results back together. Now, unioning is essentially, we're just kind of stacking these data sets on top of each other to create a larger data set. They're all structured the same, so we can just stack them on top of each other, and that is what a union function will do. And you can simply take one of these nodes and drag it to the other. You'll have the option to union or join, and you just want to make sure that union is the one that's highlighted orange, and then let go, and it will have created this union joint for you. Then you can take your third node and simply drag it onto this union until you see add, and now all three of those new rows nodes are being unioned into one. Let's create a clean step as our final step here, so we can take a look at the output. So anytime you union multiple nodes inside Tableau Prep, it's going to create a table name field, just so you can kind of keep track of where those nodes are coming from. But we don't need it, so let's get rid of it. We also no longer need our start of the month and our end of the month fields. That was just for the purposes of being able to create new rows correctly. So now what we are left with is the most basic fields. We've distilled it down to just what we need and nothing more. So we have date, channel, and our daily plan. Much like we did before we started all this work, where we had date, channel, and monthly plan. Obviously, the difference being is that we now have plan at the day level rather than the month level in a more sophisticated way. Okay, and then the last thing, as with any Tableau Prep workflow, is to create an output. And you can output this to a CSV file, an Excel file, a hyper extract. You can publish it to Tableau server. You can do whatever your use case calls for. But that's essentially it, where we broke the data apart, we created our new rows, we unioned them back together, did a little cleanup, and then we have our final output. So hopefully you found this useful and you were able to follow along. If I went a little too fast, the good thing is that it is recorded, so you can go back and rewatch it and slow it down if you need to. But thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.